The morning was quiet. Overcast light slid through the blinds like it didn't want to be here either. I was halfway through pouring coffee when my phone buzzed. Group chat. The Hive. Mira, Alina. WTF is this, Alina? I didn't mean for that to send, Mira. You sent it on purpose. You labeled the screenshots. The mug hit the counter harder than I meant. I tapped the screen for images, all from my journal. My words, my handwriting, my name scribbled at the bottom like an autograph on my own humiliation. Jesus, I whispered. The caption under the last screenshot. She talks big for someone who still dreams about people who left. My chest didn't tighten. It hollowed. I tapped the call icon beside Alina's name. She answered too quickly. Hey, you have 2 seconds to explain. I didn't think it would. You labeled it. I was venting. Okay, Mira pissed me off and I needed to. So you use me. A pause. You're overreacting. I could hear the breath she took to make herself sound calm. She always did that before she lied. You stole from me, I said. My journal. You took pictures when, last summer. You left your tablet at my place. I look. You write everything down. Like people don't exist unless they're in your little monologues. You had no right. They're just thoughts, she said. You write like you're above everyone. You just proved why I have to be. Silence. Then, you always think you're the victim. You send my journal to a group chat. That makes me the subject. She hung up. I stood still. I didn't call her back. Another buzz. Mira again. Mira, are those really yours? Me? Every word. She didn't reply. I opened the chat again. Alina had removed the images. But not before 9 people saw them. I stepped out onto the fire escape. Cold metal beneath bare feet. The city sounded distant, like I wasn't part of it anymore. My fingers trembled as I texted Mira directly. Me. Why didn't you say something last night? Mira, I didn't know what it was until this morning. She told me you sent it to her. Of course she did. The door creaked open behind me. I turned. Alina stood in the kitchen, wearing the hoodie she left here 2 nights ago. I thought you'd still be asleep, she said, like that excuse anything. You should leave. She didn't. Look, I made a mistake. But so did you. Oh? You talk about people like you're writing their obituaries. I write what I can't say to you. I was trying to protect Mira from what? My feelings. You're manipulative, she snapped. You act calm, but you weaponize words. I stepped down from the fire escape. The air between us cracked. I write because it's the only place you can't twist me. Alina scoffed. You think you're safe in a journal? That's naive. No. I was naive to trust you. She crossed her arms. You want me to beg? I want you gone. You're going to make this public. I don't need to. You already did. I reached for the hoodie. Take this and leave. She didn't move. You'll regret pushing me away. I met her eyes. I regret not doing it sooner. That landed. She walked out 5 minutes later. Hoodie stuffed under her arm. Phone in hand. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask her to. Mira called an hour later. I'm sorry, she said. I should have known it wasn't like you to share that. You didn't know what you were looking at. That's not your fault. But you're not. Okay, no, I said. But I will be. I don't think I can talk to her again. I'm not asking you to choose. I already did, Mira said quietly. I stared out the window at the fire escape. Bare now. Wet with light rain. You should come over, she said. We can watch something stupid, no talking. I'll be there in an hour. After the call, I opened my journal blank page. New ink. This is what betrayal sounds like. Soft footsteps. An unlocked screen. And the sound of your own words being used against you. I signed my name. Closed the book. And changed the passcode. The apartment was still. I sat at the kitchen table, tablet in hand. Coffee gone cold. Last July. Alina in my living room. Barefoot. Wearing my hoodie. Laughing. Drunk. Can I borrow this? She'd asked, holding out the tablet. Mine just died and I need to send Eli a cease and desist of a breakup text. I laughed. Just don't dig into my secrets. I won't. She smiled. I'm not you. Now I knew that was a lie. I unlocked the device. Same journal app, same password. She hadn't even needed to guess, just remember. The door buzzer startled me. She was early. I opened it. She came in without looking at me. Dropped her purse on the counter. Did you call me here to scream? Or, are we doing this silent treatment thing again? You still remember the passcode? What? For the journal app. She blinked. I changed it this morning, I said. But you remembered it. For months. That's not what this is about. It is now. I made a mistake. No, I said. You made a choice. She crossed her arms. It was a drunken night. You gave me the tablet. You practically invited me in to write Eli a breakup text. Not to download my trauma. You act like your life is some untouchable manuscript. I don't share it because people like you exist. That's dramatic. I stood. You copied my entries. You kept them, read them, and then you used them. You make it sound worse than it was. You waited, Alina. Sat on them like they were leverage. I didn't plan this, you labeled. The screenshots. You chose which ones to send. I was hurt. She snapped. You wrote about me like I was a villain. Because you were being one, she flinched. I was honest in my journal. You were strategic in public. I'm not strategic. I'm just tired of being the supporting act in your life. You weren't supporting. You were siphoning. Oh, come on. You took pieces of me because you never figured out how to hold your own. That's rich, coming from someone who hides behind writing instead of real conversations. I stepped closer. You don't want real conversations, you want curative moments you can control. I wanted to understand you. Then you should have asked, not hacked. Alina laughed once bitterly. You think you're better than everyone. No. I just think I'm better than this. She shook her head. You were always like this, superior. Cold, I was. Quiet, there's a difference. She went to the fridge, opened it. Then shut it like she remembered she wasn't welcome. I'm not sorry I read it, she said. I'm sorry I sent it because you got caught. No. Because I didn't expect it to hurt you this much. You knew exactly what those entries meant to me. I thought it would shake you, not break you. It didn't break. Me? She studied me. I'm still standing, I said. But you're shrinking. You think I'm small? I think you made yourself small when you stole instead of spoke. She moved toward the door, then hesitated. I'm not the only one who's kept things. You've written about everyone. Things you'd never say. I write to release, not to reveal. But you could turn everyone against me. I don't need to. You did that yourself. She paused. You're not going to forgive me. No. I said calmly. I'm not. A beat, then? I guess that's fair. It's not about fairness, it's about boundary. She opened the door, Alina. She turned that night. You were wearing my hoodie. The gray one. Yeah. You spilled red wine on the sleeve, I remember. You used my tablet, drank my wine, wore my clothes, and then you took my words. Do you see it now? I do, she said. I just didn't think you'd notice. I nodded once. She stepped out. I locked the door behind her, then sat at the table again, opened the journal app. This entry would be different. This one would stay unwritten. The messages kept coming, screenshots, forwarded texts, group chat links. I let them accumulate like they were some kind of ransom note, each one a step deeper into the betrayal I had failed to see. I couldn't look away. Not yet. One of the first ones. She thinks she's better than you? I swear she's only nice to you when she's bored. Sent to Mira. Another. She's always acting like she has it all together. But she's a mess inside. You just don't see it. To someone I had considered a close friend. It was also deliberate. Alina had picked her targets with care. Not once did she make herself the villain. No. She was always the concerned one. The misunderstood one, the one who just needed help, and she was so damn good at it. I scrolled through more and more. Do you really think she'll listen to you? I wouldn't count on it. She doesn't even hear you unless you agree with her. Sent to Mirn again. I felt the sting in my chest, as if each line of text had been drawn through my skin. Each message was like a small cut, a calculated maneuver to build walls between me and the people I trusted most. She's just using you to feel superior. Trust me. She'll discard you when she's done. I leaned back in the chair, letting the words swim in front of my eyes. I'd spent years trusting her. For what? To be used as a pawn in her own manipulative game. No. I wasn't a victim. I had to see it for what it was. She had been slowly setting a trap. The messages didn't lie. They were a roadmap, a guide to her subtle sabotage. She'd spent months, maybe years, working the angles. No one could have orchestrated this without a clear mind, a patient hand. I stood up and paced, still holding the phone. Alina hadn't just spoken behind my back. She had planted seeds that grew slowly, silently, until they bore fruit in the form of doubt and distrust. She'd shaped the perception of me in the eyes of everyone I knew. Every jab she threw at me, every whisper she planted had been crafted with a purpose. I dropped the phone onto the kitchen counter, my fingers still trembling. The air in the room felt different now. The sting was fading, replaced by something colder. The hurt had stopped being personal. It wasn't about me anymore. It was about the why. And I needed to understand that. I stared at my reflection in the fridge door. A stranger stared back. I was supposed to be the victim. But the longer I thought about it, the more I realized she had turned me into one in ways I hadn't even seen. I had been her ally, her confidant, the one she could always count on, and in return, she had made me look weak to everyone else. I sat down again. The messages weren't just cruel, they were carefully calculated to position me as the untrustworthy one. Every single message she had sent was a step to make others see me as cold, distant, even manipulative. The way she framed her interactions, always showing herself as the one trying to help, trying to keep things together. While I played the villain, I picked up the phone again. Going through more messages, she was careful, calculated. It wasn't Just a betrayal. It was a campaign dot. And then I saw the message that made everything fall into place. She only talks to you when it benefits her. She's not a real friend. Sent to someone I didn't even know she'd been speaking to. That one stung the most, not because of its content, but because of how well it fit into the story she'd been building. The story of a woman who only took and never gave. Mira had once told me I was so perfect. I had laughed it off. But now I saw the way Alina had been carefully defining me, painting me as the unreachable one, the cold one, the one who never let anyone in. I stood up again, my hands trembling as I punched in Mira's number. She answered. On the second ring. Hey, she said. Voice tentative. Mira, we need to talk. I don't know what's going on. But it's not just you, I'm seeing things too, and I don't know what to believe. Believe the truth. Alina's been working us, Mira. She's been working you. Everything she said. Every little comment, it's all calculated. There was a long pause. I don't know what you mean. Her voice wavered. She's been trying to pull us apart. To make me the bad guy. She wants you to think I'm some sort of. I stopped, swallowing the frustration that threatened to spill. She's manipulating you. Me? Everyone. She said you told her you didn't trust me. That I was a bad influence. I closed my eyes, the final piece falling into place. I felt it, the undeniable truth. Alina had turned us against each other, all while wearing a mask of concern and friendship. That's a lie. You have to see it now, Mira. She's been planting these things for months, controlling the narrative. But it's not true. It's never been true. Another pause, longer this time. I need some time to think. Mira's voice was quieter now, distant. Don't trust her, I said, my voice soft but firm. Not anymore. She hung up before I could say anything else. I let the phone fall into my lap. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was watching the pieces fall into place. And I was done being the puppet. She had made a mistake. She had shown me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about ending her game. I didn't scream. I didn't block her. I didn't send a single message to explain myself. I said nothing. The silence felt like the only weapon I had left. The only thing that could make her feel the weight of what she'd done without me. Lifting a finger, over the next few days, I stopped participating in the group chats. Just little things, quiet decisions to pull back, to slip away. No notifications pinged from the hive anymore. No updates. No questions. It wasn't a sudden change, but a gradual one, as if I was peeling away from the world she had helped build. Around me, I didn't need to explain. Let them wonder. Let her wonder. She would feel it eventually. That slow disappearance. I didn't return calls. I didn't make plans. The silence spoke for me. The hardest part was pretending nothing had shifted when I was with my family. We gathered at my parents' place for dinner one evening. My mother, with her usual warmth, asked how work was going. I smiled, a soft, practiced smile. Busy, I said, but manageable. Dad chuckled. You always say that because it's true, I replied. But my mind wasn't there. It was elsewhere, on the chat thread I'd left. On the invitations that stopped coming from the same group of people who once wanted to spend every weekend together. The text messages that were now sparse. The way the conversations with my family were shifting, too. You all right? My mother asked, her eyes soft and watchful. I'm fine, I said, looking away, staring at the plate in front of me. Just tired. All right, she murmured. Let me know if you need anything. I didn't need anything from them either. Not yet. It was when I noticed my cousin Sarah's tentative glances that I realized how tightly Alina had wrapped herself around this family. Sarah, always a quieter one, had started calling less, leaving more pauses between words. She didn't ask direct questions, but I could hear them in the silence. Was I all right? Was I mad? Had something happened? I had stopped responding to Alina's texts, but Sarah's were different. One evening after dinner, my phone buzzed with her name. I stared at the screen for a long time. She knew. She had to know. I didn't reply. Another buzz. I stared. Then I opened it. Sarah, I just want to know you're okay. Can we talk? I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because at least Sarah cared enough to ask. Anger because it was the same question Alina had been planting in all of them. The idea that something was wrong with me, that I was breaking down, that I needed their help. Me, I'm fine, Sarah. Really? The dots blinked, then stopped. I could feel her hesitation from miles away. She was probably typing, then deleting. It didn't matter. I wasn't ready to explain. Not yet. A few days passed. Another group invite. I declined without answering. No one said anything about it. Alina didn't even bother to send me a private message anymore. Her coldness was almost satisfying, like I had become the unspoken topic at every gathering. I wasn't there, but I was everywhere in the absence of my presence. She felt my absence. That's when I started taking notes. I opened a new file on my phone. A blank page. No titles, no grand declarations, just facts, just what had happened. The screenshots from the group chat, the whispers I'd heard through others, the carefully placed comments she made about me. I didn't need to ask for validation. This was my truth now. I couldn't explain it to anyone yet. But this was my defense. I wasn't going to expose her, not yet. I would wait. I would gather my pieces, piece by piece, until I could see the full shape of this betrayal. I wouldn't make her feel the burn all at once. That wasn't the plan. It was a slow burn. A quiet withdrawal. No one would know how it had started. Until it was too late. I felt the distance between me and the people I once called close friends. But I didn't care. The distance was my defense, and every day it stretched a little further. I wasn't disappearing. I was choosing silence, and silence was the most powerful weapon I had. That weekend, I ran into Mira at the store. She was standing near the checkout, her eyes catching mine across the aisle. She smiled, but it was tight, unsure. The awkwardness was palpable. "You're still around," I said, trying to sound light, casual. Yeah. I was just getting some stuff for my mom." "How have you been?" She glanced down at the basket, then back up. The question was almost too soft. "I've been good. Busy," I replied, matching her tone. "What about you?" Same. She shifted, looking down at the ground for a moment. "I haven't seen you around much. Is everything all right?" I held her gaze. Is everything all right? The question had been asked so many times, so quietly, that it almost didn't matter. She was part of the story Alina had woven. The same story that was starting to unravel in front of me. "I'm fine," I said again. The words no longer hollow but steady. I wasn't lying. Mira didn't press. She looked like she wanted to say more. But she didn't. Neither of us did. I didn't need to say anything else. Not yet. The quiet withdrawal wasn't just a way of stepping back. It was a strategic move. Let them come to me. Let Alina wonder. Let her feel the loss before I ever said a word, and they would all feel it. In time. In the quiet, I was building something stronger than anger. I was building control. I didn't go looking. I didn't need to. The moment I opened her laptop, it was like she had laid out her soul in front of me, unguarded and vulnerable. As if she'd known I would find it. I hadn't even touched the mouse. The screen was already lit, open to her search history. It was there, plain as day. Each click, each search, a trail of breadcrumbs left behind, unintentional yet perfectly clear. The first few pages were innocuous enough, recipes for vegan cakes, reviews on a new skincare brand. Then, the pattern shifted, something sharper. "Eli?" I sat back in the chair, staring at his name on the screen. Eli? Her ex. The one she told me years ago that she was over. She had lied, I realized. She hadn't moved on. She was still obsessing over him, still trying to figure out where he was, who he was with, what he was doing. I clicked on the link. It was a forum where people checked up on their exes, anonymously, something she had clearly never stopped doing. The most recent search, Eli Instagram account 2025. I narrowed my eyes. I couldn't help but scroll down further. I had every right now. Every click was a revelation. Every search felt like a piece of her that had been hiding in plain sight. Why did Eli break up with me? Did Eli ever love me? Ellie's new girlfriend. What does she have that I don't? How to get over an ex when they've moved on? I clicked open the first forum thread. It was littered with heartbreaking confessions from people who were clearly still caught in relationships long ended. The desperation in her words was clear, even without me needing to read every comment. But I did. I read enough to see the trajectory of her emotional collapse. She had never let go of him. She couldn't. The next search was a direct link to a Google image search for him, his family, his new girlfriend. She had been tracking him, looking for a sign. What did it say about her? It wasn't just obsession. It was a desperate search for validation, for closure for some reason. She couldn't accept that it was over. She hadn't given herself the grace to move on. I leaned forward, my mind quiet. No wonder she had been so manipulative. No wonder. She had poisoned my perception of everyone around me. Alina hadn't been just controlling the narrative. She had been constructing a reality where she was the victim, the one left behind, the one who had never gotten the closure she wanted. And anyone who didn't fit into that storyline, anyone who threatened her version of events, became collateral damage. I scrolled further. More searches. She had been stalking his family, checking on the status of his friends. What did they think of him now? Did they even talk to her anymore? I clicked on another tab. There it was, another search. How to reconnect with an ex after a year of no contact. And in the middle of all of this, an idea came to me, one so clear and cold that it stunned me for a moment. I wasn't angry anymore. I was something else, calm, focused. This wasn't about Alina's lies. This wasn't about the way she had used my vulnerabilities to manipulate me. This was about control. About the fact that, despite everything, she wasn't the one calling the shots anymore. I wasn't her pawn. I wasn't the one being manipulated. But I wasn't going to confront her about this either. Not yet. This was a different kind of reckoning. A slow burn, built on the realization that the war had already shifted. I closed the laptop, slowly. I didn't have to rush. I had already seen everything I needed to. The next few days passed quietly. I didn't respond to Alina's messages. I didn't reach out. I didn't give her any more space in my head than I absolutely had to. But I wasn't passive anymore. I wasn't just watching, I was moving. I started planning. I started taking notes. I wasn't going to be swept up in another emotional war she tried to start. She had made a fatal mistake by thinking I didn't have the strength to see through her games now. I was the one holding the cards. That night, I sent an email to Eli. The subject line, a note from an old friend. The message was simple, even neutral. I know this is random, but I've been thinking about you. Would love to catch up sometime. If you're open to it, let me know. Nothing more, nothing less. I didn't expect a response. But that wasn't the point. I knew she would see it. She would feel it. I wasn't after revenge. Not in the way she might think. No. I wanted her to know that I wasn't her pawn, her target, or her plaything. I was the one pulling the strings now. And when she saw Ellie's name in her inbox, when she saw him get my message, she would know exactly what I had found. She would know that I was the one who had taken back control, and it would haunt her because she wouldn't know what came next. But I did. I didn't want revenge. That was the first thing I had to remind myself. I wasn't interested in making her suffer. That kind of chaos was beneath me. No. I wanted something different: precision, clarity, control. When I scrolled through the history on her laptop, it wasn't just the obsession with Eli that caught my attention. It was the way she had been modeling herself after me. Not in a flattering way. No, this was a calculated mimicry, a deliberate distortion. There were pages of articles about emotional manipulation. How to make people think you're genuine when you're anything but. She had bookmarked an entire thread on how to fake vulnerability to gain trust. I leaned closer to the screen, my fingers still as I read through the list. Cry in front of others without breaking down. Use open body language, but maintain control. Never reveal the full truth, keep them guessing. She wanted to appear like me, not just in the way she spoke, but in the way I made people feel safe, seen. I had always been the listener, the one people trusted because I didn't need to show off my emotions to gain their loyalty. I had earned trust. She was trying to buy it. I couldn't stop reading. Each search, each click, was another layer of her insecurity, her desperation. There was a search about how to build rapport with someone who doesn't trust you, another on how to manipulate a friendship without appearing controlling. She was desperate to learn the art of becoming someone else, someone like me. The real me. But not the version of me who gave herself away. The version of me who played her cards close to the chest. Who learned how to be untouchable, while making others believe they were the ones in control. The revelation wasn't just disheartening, it was fascinating. Alina wasn't just a liar. She was a mimic, an imitator of what she thought was real. But she was too broken to ever pull it off. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling a quiet satisfaction stir inside me. She hadn't just been manipulating people, she had been mimicking me, trying to use my own tactics to manipulate others. I wasn't sure what I expected to feel, maybe anger, or a sense of betrayal. But all I felt was something colder, something more controlled, clarity. She was a reflection of me, but an incomplete one. She wanted what I had, the way I carried myself, the way people trusted me. But she couldn't build that on the foundation of deception alone. She would never be me. No matter how much she tried to wear my mask, the more I thought about it, the more I understood. It wasn't about her trying to destroy me. It was about her wanting to exist in my world, to take my place. But she was too fractured to succeed. She thought she could wear my skin, but underneath, she was still raw, still exposed, still searching for something she would never find. I closed the laptop. The light from the screen dimmed, and for the first time in weeks, I felt calm, not angry. Not hurt, just sharp, focused. I didn't need to confront her. She had already revealed everything she needed to. And I was done being passive in this game. I took out my phone and sent a message. Not to Alina, but to Mira.me: I need to talk to you. Can we meet tonight? I didn't need her approval anymore. I wasn't going to ask for her validation. I was going to move forward, and this time, I was going to do it on my terms. Mira responded almost immediately. Mira, of course, 8 p.m. at the usual spot. Me, yes, I'll be there. I didn't wait for a reply. I stood up, straightened my clothes, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't the person I had been before this. She was stronger, colder, sharper. She was someone who had learned to see through lies and see through people. I wasn't afraid of what I was about to do. I was prepared. The plan was simple: to lay the groundwork, to start carving out my path without Alina's interference. She had made her mistake by showing me her hand. Now, I would take mine. I walked to the door, grabbed my keys and left. There was no need for a dramatic speech, no need for grand gestures. This would be done quietly, like everything else I had done since I found out. But this time, I wasn't retreating. I was advancing, step by step, carefully. Alina had wanted my life, my confidence, my control. But she had underestimated one thing: I knew who I was. I didn't need to pretend. I didn't need to wear anyone else's mask to fit in. I was already enough. I had always been enough. Now, I would make sure everyone else knew it too. The group chat had been quiet for days. That familiar ping I once ignored had stopped coming altogether. And I had no intention of starting it up again. I didn't need to. What I needed now was clarity, clean, decisive, and free of emotional noise. I opened the thread, the one where she had first laid the groundwork for everything. The one where she planted seeds, started stories, twisted the truth. Alina thought I didn't notice. But I had seen every word. Every time she fed little lies to the group to make me look less than I was. No. I wasn't the one who needed to scream or raise hell. I would do it differently. I took a deep breath. Clicking on the folder I carefully compiled over the past few weeks. Screenshots, timestamps, everything I needed to expose her. No exaggerations, no extra details. Just the cold facts of what she had done. The evidence was clean, damning. It didn't need any more words from me. I selected the images, each one more revealing than the last, and hit send. The file dropped into the chat without a sound, slipping in like a stone dropped into water. It made no noise, but I knew it would ripple through everything. The message that followed was short: see for yourselves. Then, I signed out. No explanation, no justification, just silence. Let them draw their own conclusions. I didn't wait for the reactions. I didn't need to. I knew how it would unfold. It was a gamble. But I knew I had placed my bet right. The truth, raw and unembellished, had been released. It would speak louder than any of us could. And our past, then too. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. The silence was almost unbearable. But I welcomed it. It was louder than any argument, sharper than any confrontation. The truth was doing the work now. It was unraveling Alina's web, thread by thread. Finally, Mira's name appeared on my screen. Mira, I don't understand. Is this really? I could hear her hesitation in the ellipses. Her message was an invitation, an opening, but I didn't rush to fill it. Me? It's everything you need to know. Mira's response came quickly, more desperate than I expected. Mira, but why didn't you say anything? Why leave it like this? I didn't reply immediately. There was no need for further explanations. I knew she was searching for some sense of comfort, some reassurance that she wasn't complicit in all this. I leaned back, looking at the empty space in front of me. The words I could have said felt unnecessary now. This wasn't about comforting anyone. Not anymore. When I opened the chat again, it was flooded, a dozen responses within minutes. Sophie, what the hell? Alina, Jake, this can't be real. Are you serious? Katie, why would you do this? Alina's name was already absent from the thread. She had either turned off her phone, or was avoiding the inevitable. I imagined her scrambling to put together some explanation, to turn the tide back in her favor. But it was too late. The seeds had already been planted. The group's reactions were raw. Some didn't know what to believe at first, but they didn't need long to process. Her manipulations had been subtle, but they had been there. She had been the puppeteer, and now the strings were visible for everyone to see. Then, Mira's message came through again. It was quieter this time, more deliberate. Mira, how long did you know me? Since the beginning. There was no other answer I needed to give. I didn't owe an explanation. Not to Mira, not to anyone. The evidence was there. What more could I say? I closed the chat. Let it sit in silence again. I didn't care if Alina came back with 1,000 excuses. This was no longer about me being the victim. This was about her being exposed, her carefully constructed narrative shattered. She had built a web of lies to trap me, and I had watched it unravel from the inside silently. Now it was everyone's turn to see the truth. The consequences would come for her, not from me, but from everyone she had manipulated, everyone she had deceived. She had created the perfect illusion, but all illusions, no matter how carefully constructed, crumble when exposed to light, and the truth had been released into the world. It would do its job. As I sat there, watching the silence unfold, something changed. It was the clarity of knowing I had taken back control, not through anger, not through revenge, just through the quiet, steady release of something undeniable. The silence that followed was the most powerful weapon of all. She had wanted to manipulate me, to control me, but she had underestimated my ability to stay calm, to remain detached. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. The first call came at 7:12 a.m. I let it ring, no voicemail. The second came 5 minutes later. By the fourth, I turned my phone to silent and placed it face down on the table. At call number 11, she switched to texting, "Alina, please talk to me. You don't understand how this looks. You don't know what this is doing to me." She was wrong. I understood exactly what it was doing to her. That was the point. At 15. Her tone shifted. "Alina, you've made your point. This isn't you, this is cruel, you're not this person." She was right. I wasn't cruel, just done. The 17th call came at 10:03 p.m. I watched it buzz once, then stopped caring. By the next morning, Mira texted. "Mira, she's saying it was all a misunderstanding. That you edited the screenshots." "Me? Do you believe that?" There was a pause. Then, "Mira, no." I stepped outside, the cold air sharp and grounding. I hadn't planned for what came after. That was the beauty of it. I didn't need to. Alina had built her friendships like a spider builds a web, delicate, sticky, invisible until caught. But when trust breaks, webs fall apart, and hers was unraveling faster than even I anticipated. By Wednesday, I heard from Sarah. "Sarah, she's saying you're spiraling. That this is revenge." "Me? Did I lie?" "Sarah, no. But she's scared now. You should have seen her at Katie's. She looked hollow." "Me? Then she's starting to feel what she caused." The next group event happened without her. I didn't go either. I didn't need to. I got the recap from Mira. She showed up uninvited. She said over the phone. People didn't even make eye contact. Sophie barely acknowledged her. She say anything? Not really, just that she was disappointed in everyone. That's rich. She left after 20 minutes, alone. Double quotes good. Later that night, I opened Instagram. She hadn't posted since the fallout. No curated selfies. No quotes about strength, just silence. And silence from Alina was never natural. It meant she was losing control. Then the private messages started. "Alina, are you going to keep going? Is this your way of ending me? Who else did you tell?" I didn't answer. She wanted to know how far the damage reached. The not knowing was its own punishment. She didn't know who had read what, who had quietly withdrawn. That uncertainty was better than any public takedown. The next day, she sent another message, different tone. "Alina, you win." I stared at the words for a long time, not because they meant anything, but because she thought this was a contest. I replied once. "Me, it was never a game." That was the last time I answered her. Weeks passed. Her name stopped coming up in conversations. New invites were sent without her included. People who had once followed her lead now avoided her entirely. I walked into a cafe one afternoon and saw her sitting in the corner, alone, staring at her phone like it might breathe for her. She looked up, our eyes met. She smiled, small, sad, uncertain. I didn't smile back. I ordered tea and left. The damage she did couldn't be undone, but her ability to do it again, gone. The beauty of truth is it doesn't need defending. It just needs time, and Alina was out of time. The silence stretched for weeks. I didn't answer her. I didn't need to. She called, texted, and left voicemails I never bothered to listen to, each message more desperate than the last. At first, she tried to sound like she understood, like she was apologizing. But it wasn't long before the words turned into pleading, into accusations. She was trying to reel me back in. She thought if she spoke enough, if she tried hard enough, I'd crack. I did in single quotes. One afternoon, after a particularly long voicemail, "I'm sorry, please. I need you to understand." I deleted it without listening to another second. I didn't need to hear it. I had heard it all before. The words meant nothing. I knew her game too well. I walked into the cafe that afternoon. The same one I had seen her alone in weeks ago. I had been avoiding it, avoiding her in all its forms. But this time, there she was, in the same corner seat, alone, looking at her phone with that same expression of defeat. She didn't notice me at first. I ordered my coffee and stood in line. My back turned to her for just a moment. A part of me wanted to look at her, to take in the discomfort, the humiliation. But I held my ground. I wasn't interested in more drama, no more explanations, no more games. She must have sensed me because she looked up. Her eyes locked with mine. For a split second, I saw something there, regret, fear, maybe even something darker. She smiled weakly. I didn't return the gesture. Instead, I turned back to the counter, paid for my drink, and left. I didn't need to say anything. She didn't deserve my words. The silence was enough. I never once felt the urge to reach out. Not out of cruelty, but because I had found something she would never understand, peace. She had mistaken my silence for weakness. She had mistaken my kindness for foolishness. But what she didn't realize was that the power of silence is far stronger than any word. She had no control over me anymore, and she knew it. She felt it. Her text grew increasingly frantic. Please talk to me, they said, we can fix this. But I didn't need to fix anything, I had fixed myself long ago. The truth was, I could have destroyed her further. I had more than enough evidence to unravel her completely. There were searches I hadn't shared, conversations she had had with other people that painted her as the manipulator she was. But I didn't need to use them. What good would it do? I wasn't looking for a victory in the public sphere. The only victory I wanted was peace. And I had each screenshot, each message I had kept to myself was my reminder. A reminder that I didn't need to destroy someone to win. The silence was a real power. Let her suffer in her own choices. Let her live with the consequences of her actions. Mira called that night. Her voice was uncertain when she spoke. Mira. She's asking everyone what's going on. She's talking about leaving. She's saying you're the one who started all this, that you're angry. I didn't reply at first. Let her figure it out. Mira. You should say something. At least tell her you're okay. You're acting like you've already cut her off completely. Me? I'm fine. I'm better than I've ever been. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Mira, you don't owe her anything. But I've never seen her like this, not even after everything. She's me. She's powerless now. Mira didn't respond immediately, and I could hear her shifting on the other end, uncertain. Mira, you're really done with her? Then, me? I'm done with the lie she created. I'm done being part of her game. I'm not angry. I'm not hurt. I'm just finished. I didn't need to explain myself to anyone anymore. Not to Alina, not to Mira, not to anyone else who might have tried to understand. I had learned to let go. And in doing so, I had taken back everything she had tried to steal from me. She had made me feel like I owed her some sort of closure, some big confrontation. But I owed her nothing. The moment I took control of my own narrative, the moment I stopped reacting to her, I became free and in silence. I had taken everything she thought she could take from me. I hadn't fought back with rage. I hadn't fought back with accusations. I had simply moved forward. It was the kind of strength she would never understand. When I saw her again weeks later, I barely recognized the shell of the person I had known. Her presence was thin, desperate. Her usual confidence had withered into something almost unrecognizable. The Alina I knew was gone, replaced by someone who had lost their grasp on everyone around them. She looked up, but before she could say anything, I turned away. The silence had done its job. I didn't need to look back. I didn't need to speak. The quiet was louder than any words I could have said, and it was the last thing she would ever hear from me. I never mailed it. Not because I didn't want to, not because it wasn't true, but because it was a letter that didn't need to be sent. It didn't need to go anywhere. It only needed to be written. I sat at my desk late one evening, the quiet of the apartment surrounding me. I opened a fresh document. My fingers hovered above the keyboard for a moment. Then I started. Dear Alina, I don't know what I expected from this. Maybe some catharsis. Maybe some kind of closure. But I'm not sure there's any closure left to find. What I know is that what you took from me can't be given back. Not in apologies. Not in explanations. I don't need you to apologize for what you did. I just need to let you go. But I can't do that without telling you what you've taken and what I've gained in return. You took trust from me. You took what I believed in. What I thought I knew. I thought you were someone I could count on. But you weren't, and in taking that, you made me question everything I thought I understood about loyalty and friendship. You made me doubt myself. But what you didn't take is my ability to see things clearly. What you didn't take is my strength. I've spent too many months wondering how I could have missed it, how I could have been so blind. But the truth is, you didn't take my vision, you gave it back to me. You taught me to stop trusting blindly. You taught me how to trust myself. You spent years pretending to be someone you weren't, someone you thought I wanted you to be. But I see you now. I see the cracks in the mask. I see the insecurity, the fear, the manipulation. You thought I wouldn't notice, that I wouldn't see the way you used me to get ahead, the way you twisted the truth to fit your narrative. But I did notice, and in noticing, I became free. I'm not angry anymore. Not at you. Not at what you've done. I'm not even hurt. I'm just done, and it's a relief to say that. I've let go of everything you did to me. And now I'm letting go of the idea that I needed anything from you. I don't need your approval. I don't need your validation. I never did. I was enough, all along. You never had control over me. Not really. The moment I realized that, the moment I stopped needing your approval, was the moment I took everything back. And I am stronger now. Stronger than I ever was when I was trying to please you, when I was trying to hold on to what wasn't real. So this is me letting go. Not for you, but for me. I don't need to carry this weight anymore. I don't need to be reminded of the past, of the lies, of the broken trust. I've freed myself. And I am finally at peace. This is the last letter I'll write to you. The last time I'll give you any part of me. Consider this my final goodbye. I wish you peace. But I'm moving on, I'm closing the chapter. Goodbye. May stared at the screen for a long time after I finished. The words felt heavier than I expected. But it wasn't sadness, it was finality. There was no room for bitterness, no room for regret. Just the acceptance of what was and the clarity that came with releasing it. I closed the document. I didn't need to send it. She didn't need to see it. She wouldn't have understood it anyway. And I had no more space for that kind of energy. The next day, I deleted the file. It wasn't necessary anymore. What I reclaimed couldn't be given away. Not even in a letter. I didn't think about Alina again after that. Not with anger, not with resentment. She had been a part of my life. But she was no longer in it. She was a closed chapter, a lesson learned, but not one I needed to keep rereading. I started making new plans. I started living my life without the weight of her betrayal, without the constant fear of how I was perceived, how I was being manipulated. I took steps forward, small ones at first, but ones I felt sure. And I never looked back because what I reclaimed was more than just my trust. It was myself. The version of me that didn't need to be anything other than what I was. The version of me who had the strength to see through the lies, to recognize the truth when it was staring her in the face. Alina had thought I needed her in some way. She had thought I needed her approval, her validation. But the truth was I never needed any of that. Not from her, not from anyone. I was enough on my own. And I had finally learned that. It was a quiet victory. One that didn't need to be shouted. It was just there, in the peace I had found and the clarity I had gained, and that was enough. A year later, I found myself in a different space, literally and emotionally. The apartment felt warmer. Somehow, less cluttered. The walls still held the echo of old memories. But there was something about them now that didn't weigh me down. They simply existed. As part of the story I no longer needed to run from, I hosted small dinners. The kind where laughter didn't feel forced, where the wine flowed freely. But the conversations were light. No heavy topics. No undercurrents of manipulation lurking just beneath the surface. Just friends. Real friends. Friends who didn't question your every word. Friends who didn't make you feel like you had to explain yourself. There was no longer a need to keep looking over my shoulder. No need to wonder if someone was twisting my words or telling stories behind my back. The trust I had found was solid. It was quiet. Like the house I had rebuilt in my heart. Erin was one of those new friends. She was steady in ways I didn't even realize I needed the first time we met. It was a casual conversation about a book we both loved. We didn't discuss much else that night. But there was an unspoken understanding between us. She had this way of listening that made you feel like you were seen, not in the way people usually think of, but like you mattered for just being who you were, not who you were trying to be. Over time, she became someone I could lean on, but in a way that didn't feel like dependence. She wasn't my crutch, but she was a part of the foundation I'd been rebuilding. She was one of the few people who didn't feel like a chapter in my past. She felt like a new beginning, and I was grateful for that. One evening, as we sat in my living room, half-finished glasses of wine between us, Erin said something that stuck with me. "You've changed," she said, looking at me thoughtfully. "Changed how?" I asked, setting down my glass and turning to her. "You're more grounded." "I don't know. There's a confidence in you now." I smiled, but it wasn't for show. It wasn't a mask I had put on. It was something real. "I've had to," I said, my voice calm. "I've had to become someone who could stand alone." She didn't press further. She didn't need to. I didn't need to explain every layer. She understood without asking. I started writing again, not just journals, but essays. Long ones, short ones. They were pieces of me I didn't know I still had to give. But I did. It was cathartic. I wrote about trust, how it's given and taken, how we build it, break it, and sometimes how we have to relearn it. I wrote about power, the quiet, unspoken power of being still, of letting someone else reveal their cards before you show your own. But mostly, I wrote about silence, how silence is a weakness, but a shield, how sometimes it's louder than any words can be. I wrote about the people who think silence means absence. They mistake it for fear or insecurity, but I knew better. Now, silence was its own power. It was the power to choose when to speak, when to act, when to let the world unfold on its own. Silence was where my strength had taken root. A month ago, I published one of those essays. It was called How to Disappear from a Narcissist's Narrative. It was the first time I had written something so personal for public consumption. But I had thought about it for so long, it felt like something I had to say. The response was unexpected. People who had been in similar situations reached out. They thanked me for articulating what they had never been able to express. They shared their own stories. And while I had expected some recognition, I hadn't expected to feel this level of peace from it. I wasn't just writing for myself anymore. I was writing for them, those who hadn't found their voice yet, or who were still trapped in a narrative they couldn't escape. It felt freeing. The words I once kept locked away had finally found a place. I heard from Alina again. Not long after. It was a quiet message, a last-ditch attempt at a reconciliation. She said she missed me. She said she was sorry for everything. She asked me to come back to help her rebuild the fractured friendships, the broken connections. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I didn't need to drag her through the mud or demand an apology. I had nothing to prove. My silence said more than any words could, and I was at peace with that. I was sitting on the balcony, watching the sunset when Erin called me one evening. Her voice was excited, full of energy. "I just finished your essay," she said, almost out of breath. "It's amazing, you're amazing." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. It wasn't the kind of validation I once sought, but it was meaningful in a way that no hollow compliment had ever been. "Thanks," I said softly. "It feels good to be seen. It feels like you found your place in the world," she added. I paused, looking out the horizon. It was a beautiful, quiet evening, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like there was something missing. "I think I finally have," I said. And that was enough. ****, I saved one screenshot, just one, her last search before I signed out of her device. It was simple, a question. What if she knows? And that was the moment it hit me. I had always known. I had seen everything she had done, every little thing she thought she had hidden, the lies, the manipulation, the attempts to control. I had known all along. Even before I let myself see it clearly, she hadn't really known me at all. She hadn't understood that I was always one step ahead. She had believed her actions were hidden in the shadows, but the truth had always been there, in front of me. I had just been waiting, watching, letting her think she was winning, when in fact she had already lost. It was almost comical in a way, to think that the person who had tried so hard to control every aspect of my life, every relationship I had, was now cowering in fear. I had done nothing. I hadn't threatened her. I hadn't fought back with fury or malice. I had simply stopped engaging. I had let her think she was still in control, still able to dictate the terms of our relationship. But I was the one who had chosen the rules, chosen the boundaries. I hadn't spoken a word to her since I exposed everything. Since I sent that final message into the group chat, watched her unravel as the truth spilled out. I could see the cracks in her carefully constructed world, the way people started pulling away, the way she was left standing in the silence she had created. I didn't need to say anything else. Silence, in the end, had been my most powerful weapon. I ran my finger over the screen of my phone as I stared at the screenshot. That one simple question. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. But the feeling quickly dissipated. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. No one was coming to rescue her. No one cared anymore. I thought about the last time I saw her standing in the middle of a group, her usual air of confidence gone. I had watched her, quietly observing. While she tried to shift the blame, she had smiled weakly, attempting to salvage what was left of her dignity. But it was too late. Her fear was palpable, the fear of being exposed for what she truly was, the fear of knowing that everyone now saw her for who she had been behind the mask. I had given her a chance to explain herself, but I hadn't expected her to. The truth was far too obvious for words. She had no way of making it better, no way of undoing what had already been revealed. And as the weeks passed, I noticed her slipping further and further from the lives of the people who had once trusted her. The invitations stopped, the messages stopped. No one bothered to check in. She had become irrelevant. I chuckled softly to myself, remembering how, for so long, I had been the one who had doubted my own worth. How her presence had made me question everything. I had let her chip away at my confidence, make me believe I needed her in my life. But the truth was, I had never needed her. Not really. The silence I had chosen was the final proof of that. That night, I deleted the screenshot. I didn't need to keep it anymore. There was nothing to gain from looking back. The truth had been revealed, and with it, the last remnants of her influence over me had crumbled away. It wasn't about revenge. It was about regaining control over my life, over my choices. It was about reclaiming the parts of me she had stolen, and doing so without lifting a finger. In the end, she had given me everything I needed. Every bit of leverage, every piece of information. She had made herself vulnerable, and I had taken advantage of it. But I hadn't gone after her. I hadn't attacked her. I had simply stopped playing the game, and by doing so, I had won. The next day, I walked into my favorite cafe, the one I had avoided for months because of the memories it carried. I smiled to myself as I took a seat near the window, watching people pass by. Alina's face hadn't crossed my mind in days, not because I had forgotten about her, but because she had become irrelevant. A ghost in my past, I was free of her. The barista smiled as he handed me my usual. Glad to see you back, he said. Me too, I replied, and for the first time in a long while. I meant it. I wasn't angry anymore. There was no need for that kind of emotion. I wasn't bitter. She had played her part, and I had learned from it. Now, I was stronger. I was whole again, and the best part, I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Not to Alina. Not to the people who had once chosen her over me. I had found peace in my silence. In the knowledge that I didn't need to justify my actions. She had her chance to speak. She had her chance to explain herself. But in the end, the silence was all that mattered, and in that silence, I had found everything I needed. ********.